Welcome to Aspire to Retire.
The show that helps you plan smarter, retire with confidence, and enjoy that future you worked so hard for.
We're diving into the strategies and insights you need to build a secure and fulfilling retirement.
No jargon, no confusion, just clear, expert advice to help you take control of your retirement.
Because when it comes to your financial future,
every decision matters.
This is Aspire to Retire.
Hello and welcome to Aspire to Retire, the show that helps you make the most of your golden years. I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson, and today we're discussing tax-smart retirement, keeping more of your money. Now, we all want to keep as much of our hard-earned savings as possible, and today we will explore tax-efficient strategies to help you do just that. Let's introduce our guests, Ralph and Tim Short, part of the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, a local fiduciary firm that prepares people for a successful retirement. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Good to see you as always.
Good seeing you.
Likewise. Thank you.
So retirement, something that we talk about a lot, it seems like. And so why is it important to think about taxes in retirement?
Because taxes are going to happen whether you're in retirement or not. It's just based on your income. But the thing that you need to understand, if you're planning on having $2,000 a month coming to you as income from your retirement accounts, that's not $2,000 you can spend, because guess what? The government's got their hand out and it's going to pass from you to them as quickly as you can. So you need to make sure you understand that fact that all the money that you take out of your retirement account is not your money.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to point out with the taxable account, you're deferring your taxes, which could be good or could be bad. So it goes back to each individual strategies. But if you have all pre-tax money, like say, if you pull out $5,000 and you need $5,000, you got to pull out more than $5,000. So it's all about what you're able to spend in retirement.
Wow, so that's Roth versus regular IRA? Is that what we're talking about?
So what we're talking about is just pre-tax money. So a traditional IRA, 401ks, anything that's pre-tax.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what would you say are the biggest tax mistakes that people make when they're planning for retirement? Because again, we're not taught this in school, so that's another class we should have had in school, is how to do your taxes.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, the biggest issue that we see is nobody accounts for taxes in retirement, right? While we're working, we're getting that paycheck, we're having taxes just directly taken out of that account or out of that check. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, if you will, right? So once we get into retirement, you're going to have to do your own paycheck, whether you have a pension, Social Security, a little bit of a different story. But if we need money to live on, then there's things to consider, which taxes are a big piece of that. A lot of people that we see, have been saving in pre-tax vehicles, traditional IRAs, 401ks, what have you. If you've saved up $1 million or $2 million in that account, well, guess what? That's not all yours, right? So you've got to pay attention to those things. But if you're not planning for taxes in retirement, it might not work out the way that you want. But what if we could shift it, and while we're accumulating wealth, maybe we can use different types of accounts, have some tax diversification or tax-free income.
But I think a lot of people, when they go to talk to somebody about their retirement accounts and things like that, nobody's ever talking about taxes in retirement. Nobody's ever talking about tax efficiency. They're always talking about how we can grow your money, how we can grow your money. That's part of the retirement plan. That's not all of your retirement plan. Because just because you have an investment statement, that doesn't mean that's a retirement income plan. That just means, hey, this is how much money I got. What am I going to do with it? I don't know. The guy's telling you can get more, but if you're getting more and you have to take out more, guess what? Taxes are more. So that's why we sit down as fiduciaries and start that conversation about taxes.
Yeah, because I don't think about that when I'm looking at my IRA and whatnot. I'm not thinking about taxes. So that's a really good point. That's why you got to have somebody essentially holding your hand and walking you through the process, because there's a lot of unknowns out there. All right. Well, how can someone plan ahead to keep more of their retirement savings? Again, I think this is where you guys come in.
Well, I think there's a balance there, right? A lot of people think that they're going to make less money in retirement than they are while they're working. Could be true, could not be true, right? Everybody's going to be a little different. But if we need a tax break now, it might be more beneficial to save more money pre-tax. That way we get the tax break currently, but in retirement, we're going to have to pay taxes on all the distributions, right? So if you are making over a certain amount, and you might not be able to contribute to a Roth IRA. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider there, and you don't want to make a mistake and be penalized.
The other thing I would ask you, Cheryl, is this. What Tim just got through saying is most people think that they're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Why is that? Because The government always told us that when they started the IRAs, the 401ks, contribute here, and when you're in retirement, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. I can tell you from experience with a lot of our clients that are coming in, because they have a pension, they have Social Security, they have RMDs, they're making a lot more money than they were when they were working. So once again, the government is always telling us the truth, correct?
Yeah, man. I don't like that at all. And I bet nobody likes that.
Correct.
You probably have a lot of surprised people, or maybe not so happy people when you're telling them this stuff.
That is true.
I think, a lot of people, they think that, hey, I'm retired, I no longer have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where that comes from either, but you've got to make sure that you plan for those.
Right, it's a bubble we're all living in, and we're all looking forward to the golden years, and we're with blinders on, I think. Yeah. All right. So I teased this earlier, the Roth IRA. So what are the tax benefits of contributing to a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA?
Well, really the biggest benefit is that you're going to contribute to a Roth account, and as long as you play by the rules, you're going to have everything tax-free coming back to you, right? But there are rules and guidelines to follow. There is no perfect situation. But if you're making over a certain amount now, and you don't have the ability to put Roth inside of your 401k, you might not be able to contribute to a Roth, right? So, there is no perfect solution, but there can be a benefit to the Roth because, hey, everybody wants tax-free income, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got the ability to put money into a Roth inside of your 401k, maybe that's a good strategy because you can put in so much more and you don't have the income limits. But when it comes to a traditional side, pre-tax money, you've got to make sure that you understand the tax ramifications because, yes, you'll get a tax break now, but everything that you pull out later on down the line is going to be taxable to you.
And what I would say to you, Cheryl, and you're probably going to laugh at this, it really depends on that person and what they're trying to do. Now, if you're a young person just starting out, it might make more sense to put it in a Roth to begin with because guess what? You're not in a higher tax bracket. For most people just starting out their job, they're not in a $200,000 a year job.
Right.
Not to say that there are people out there that's got that, but when you're starting out, it might make more sense to do a Roth, and then later on when you're in a higher tax bracket, so you can start taking that amount that you're contributing to a traditional off your income tax, which lowers your taxes at that point in time. So there's just a lot of different situations to consider.
So curious, why are there those rules with the Roth? As if you make this much money, you can't contribute anymore to a Roth.
Well, you can't have everything and not give something up. So it's important to understand because if you don't, you could potentially contribute, but then you're going to be penalized. So it's not going to work out the way that you want. So it's really important to get the advice because if you're getting penalized now you're kind of defeating the whole purpose.
When you say penalized, are they charging a fee? What do they do?
Yeah, it's going to be a penalty, right? So that's why you've got to make sure that you understand what the rules and the guidelines look like because, like Dad says, if you're 20 years old, one of your best options could potentially be a Roth because your income level is not going to be quite as high as somebody who's been in the workforce for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Now, all of these accounts are designed for retirement, and I know a lot of people want to use them as savings accounts where you could be penalized too, so you got to pay attention.
So many rules. All right, we have to take a brief break here, but before we do, Tim, tell us about our special offer.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. So for the first 10 callers, if you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, pick up the phone, give us a call, 833-897-4845. We would love the opportunity to bring you into the office where we will create your very own retirement roadmap, which will include some tax strategies as well. And once again, we'll do it on a complimentary basis.
And trust me, these guys are worth your time because they're going to talk about things that we don't get to discuss here on TV, and there's a lot to talk about. So we're opening up those phone lines. If you'd like some personal advice, call right now. You can also schedule a consultation, 833-897-4845, or simply scan that QR code on the bottom of your screen. More to come after the break. Stay with us.
Imagine the future you've been wanting all along. A world where your retirement income is covered and you don't have to worry. Your financial assets are protected, and you have an experienced team fighting every day to grow your assets. Imagine a company creating tax strategies and legacy plans to make sure your loved ones are protected no matter what happens. At Welcome Home Financial Partners, we're an experienced financial team with the right professional licenses and an unbreakable commitment to making our clients feel like family. Here you'll find determined, friendly faces in a world filled with obstacles and problems. We help plan your retirement income to ensure you won't run out of money in retirement. We build in protection to make sure your assets are covered on all sides. We focus on growing your wealth to combat inflation and rising cost of living. And we design tax strategies to help you avoid paying back what you shouldn't while protecting the people you love. Our team never stops fighting for you. With an unparalleled work ethic, we work hard because we know your future depends on it. We're proud to help you choose the life you want to live in retirement. Welcome to your financial future. We're so glad you're here.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. We're having some great conversation today. Guys, if you only knew what happened during the commercial breaks, we're going to dive right back in to our great conversation we're having with Ralph and Tim. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you about something called tax harvesting, and can retirees use it to lower their tax bill? Personally, I don't know much about this.
Well, tax loss harvesting, once again, this kind of goes back to you have to understand how these things work, right? And what it does is it sells investments, right, at a loss where you could offset potentially your taxable gains. So once again, it's not going to apply to every account, but you've got to make sure that you understand what you're trying to accomplish with your money, because if you try to do this on an account that it doesn't work on, right, you're not doing anything. So you've got to make sure that you understand the concept, but what you don't want to have, you don't want to have the ability for tax loss harvesting. That means that some of your investments aren't doing well. So in a perfect world, we wouldn't be able to do tax loss harvesting.
And what I would say to most people, just to understand the fact that if you needed income from your non-qualified accounts and you've got $2 of gain here and you can offset it with $2 of loss here, no taxable event at that point in time. That's the goal.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah. All right. You guys really talk about a lot of this stuff. You get into the weeds with it, which is good. You get more into the weeds with personal consultations.
That's what it's all about.
I know. All right. So how can retirees pass money onto their heirs in a tax-efficient way? I know we've touched on this some over the past few episodes.
Well, a lot of people need to take a look at maybe some trusts, all right, and maybe Roth IRAs. And I tell people this all the time. Who do you want to pay the taxes? Okay, because if you convert your traditional IRA, traditional 401ks back over to a Roth account, you're going to be paying the taxes. But that goes to your heirs without paying any taxes at that point in time. So you have to kind of choose what you want to do at that point in time. Another thing that you can do, people need to understand, is on life insurance. Life insurance is going to go over to your heirs or beneficiaries income tax free under current tax law. We always have to say that because the government's always going to try and make changes. You have to stay current with the current tax laws.
Yeah, and these are conversations that we have quite a bit because we have clients that say, hey, I don't care who pays the taxes as long as it's not me. And then we've got some clients that say, hey, I want to make sure that my kids or my grandkids or whoever don't pay any taxes.
Yeah.
So we've talked about it before with life insurance. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. But, you know, we've got two things guaranteed in life, and we're talking about them right now, death and taxes.
Oh, man.
Right? So if we can get rid of taxation for your beneficiaries by utilizing life insurance, maybe that could be a good strategy, because there's been a lot of changes to tax codes as of late, and we talk about this quite a bit, is that everybody has pre-tax money. That's where they're shoving all their money into, whether it's a 401k, TSP, whatever, right? And if you've got all that pre-tax and you pass that over to a child or uneligible, I forget the exact term, uneligible beneficiary, then they're going to have to go through that investment, that pre-tax investment, within a 10-year period. Now, pre-2020, it was a little bit different. So that's why it's important, because most people don't want anybody other than their beneficiary to make decisions on the money that they get, right? So, hey, now we have to go through it within a 10-year period or whatever it will look like. So that's why it's important, because hopefully when parents leave money to children, they want to make sure that the kids don't have to pay the taxes on it, and they've got the ability to do what they want to for the rest of their life.
I see. Did you catch that, Ralph?
Yeah, I think so, but guess
Yeah.
what? You're not going to be able to pay any taxes. It's all going to be gone.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh, you're going to spend all the money.
It's going over to the grandkids.
Oh, Papa's going to bypass you.
Yep.
Yep. You heard it right here, folks. So a step up in cost basis. Tell me what that is and why it matters for inherited assets. And now this sounds really complicated.
Well, it can be complicated, but to simplify it as best I can, it's like this. All right, let's suppose, Cheryl, that your parents bought their house and it cost them $50,000 when they bought it.
Okay.
And when they pass on, it's worth $500,000.
Okay.
Okay. Now, at that point in time, your cost basis is $500,000 because they gave it to you.
Okay.
But if they gave the house to you before they died, that basis of $50,000 is now yours, and when you sold it for $500,000, you'd have to pay capital gains tax on $450,000. So that's what a step up in basis at death, whatever the value of that account is, whether it's your home,
My gosh.
whether it's stocks, whether it's your IRAs and things like that, you're going to have.
So wait a second. Is it better to get a house before or after?
Well, what we see quite a bit is people try to get their kids or beneficiaries on the deed at the current time. Well, the problem with that is
Oh,
that
my.
now they, if they bought the house back in 1923
Yeah.
at whatever cost, that's going to be what their cost basis is. So it's better to pass things through trust or pass, when they've passed, because you get the step up in basis. Now, not only on real estate, but like on stocks. If you bought 100 shares of Apple 40 years ago, you paid pennies on the dollar, right? So if you wanted to transfer ownership of that account, you could technically do that, but then at that point in time, there's going to trigger a taxable event. Whereas if you pass away, you leave it to a beneficiary instead of that pennies on the dollar cost basis. Now it's much higher because it's going to be evaluated on your date of death. So those are things that you've got to pay attention to. Once again, there's that disclaimer as it is right now.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's almost better just to leave everything to your beneficiary and not do too much.
It really
It
depends
depends?
on what they're trying to do.
Okay.
I mean, that's the key thing, because a lot of people, they will try and get their house over their kids for one reason and one reason only, and that's to kind of avoid Medicaid rules and stuff. But
Oh, no.
that's a completely different subject, and then you kind of have to worry about that. They don't think about the tax angles of it. They think
Right.
about not having to worry about Medicaid.
Yeah, you're right. It is complicated. There's a lot involved there. And then, of course, we talk about the life insurance that you mentioned. So how do life insurance and trusts help with reducing taxes for the family? You touched on the trust thing a little bit too.
But I think life insurance people need to understand is that it's going to pay out tax-free to the person who's ever the beneficiary. It's
Yeah.
not taxable, so at that point in time, if you had a $100,000 policy, your heirs or your beneficiaries are going to get $100,000 without paying any taxes. If you had $100,000 in your IRA, guess what? That's all taxable if it's pre-tax.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out because, we've talked about required minimum distributions in the past. And, one strategy that we walk through some people with is, hey, we know we're going to have to start pulling money out, right? So let's say you turn 73 this year, we're going to start pulling out some money. Well, what if we take some of that money, because a lot of folks don't need it, why don't we take some of that and pay for life insurance premiums? And instead of doing like a Roth conversion, if you will, strategy, maybe we can take some of that money from the RMD that we know we've got to take out, put that towards a life insurance policy, and then that policy is going to pay your beneficiaries once you pass tax-free.
Right.
Because what you really are doing at that point in time is taking that money and utilizing it the best tax-free way that you can, because, hey, tax-free is tax-free.
Yeah, exactly. So what's one simple step somebody watching today can take to start reducing their taxes in retirement?
Well, you got to assess where you're at, right? What are you currently doing? What is your current taxable income? Where are your accounts? Are they pre-tax? Are they Roth? What are they? And I think that's really step number one, is really assessing where you're at. And obviously, if you need help, go to the professional, right? But if you say, hey, I know I'm putting everything into a pre-tax account, I feel like I need the tax deduction now. But if we're going to retire and we've got pensions, we've got Social Security, maybe we've got rental properties that we can rely on, and we don't necessarily need the money, then we're going to run into issues with the RMDs.
Okay, gotcha. Well, it's time for another break, so give us that special offer once again, Tim.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. So the first 10 callers from today's program, if you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, give us a call, 833-897-4845. We love the opportunity for you to come into the office where we will create your very own retirement roadmap. Best part is we'll do it on a complimentary basis.
Complimentary. Take advantage of that because there's some tough questions and tough things we got to figure out how to do as we approach retirement age. So call right now and schedule that consultation, 833-897-4845. Coming up next, it's my favorite part of the show. We'll feature some of your burning questions.
It was the longest running bull market in history. Everything was looking up. While inverted yield curves pointed to a recession, the market kept going. And then, if you're planning to retire soon, that could spell bad news for your returns. Our team can help you better withstand the bear market. Now more than ever, you need a financial professional to stand with you. Visit our website to learn more about our services. You can call or email our office to schedule your complimentary consultation today.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. It's our favorite part of the show. Yes, it is time to feature some of your questions. And we will start with Keith from Mechanicsville. Keith says, will I pay fewer taxes in retirement, or could my tax bill go up? Let me guess, it depends.
It depends. It depends on your income. If all of a sudden that you are making $40,000 in retirement and you're only making $30,000 before you retired, your taxes are probably going to go up if you're single. But it all depends on that income. And for us to sit here and answer that question to be precise, we don't know that because we don't know what your tax bill is going to be. The other thing is, do you know what your basically tax rate is going to be? We don't know that because 5 years from now, 1 year from now, it may change.
Right.
They may change it altogether. We don't know.
No.
And I think it's important to point out that, it really depends on where you're pulling the money from too. So if we've done a good job and we just utilize the Roth IRA and we're over 59 and a half and we've got the 5-year rule included, so once again, back to guidelines and rules, then all that could be coming tax free. So now if we don't have a pension, we're just living off Social Security, so that's the only other income stream coming in, and now we're tapping into the Roth, hey, taxes could be less than when you're working.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Next up is Deborah from Verina. Deborah says, what's the smartest way to take money from different retirement accounts to pay less in taxes?
I got this one, so that depends.
You just took Ralph's line.
So it really depends on, what you're trying to accomplish and where you're at, right? Because depending on when you retire, we'll kind of determine where to draw money from, right? So we've talked about in shows in the past, and even on the radio show, we talk about it quite a bit, is, hey, if we've got this money coming to us, right? If it's going to be tax-free, that's great. But if it's taxable, then we really need to take a look at the retirement income plan. But if we retire early and we're not taking Social Security to delay it, then if we're tapping into it, then we've got taxable income and not including Social Security. So there's a lot of things to incorporate there, and that's why retirement income plan is not, okay, here's the plan, now we stick to it.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing document to make sure that we can be flexible and pull from different accounts.
Yeah. All right. Next is Michael from West Point. Michael says, should I move some of my 401k or IRA money into a Roth IRA to lower future taxes?
It's a good idea to do that if that works for you. We just don't know where you are from a tax standpoint, how much you're making. And the other thing is, let's just say that you're a single person and you've got $50,000 worth of income. You might be in this tax bracket, but all of a sudden you start converting your traditional over to a Roth. It might jump you up into a different tax bracket, but it all depends on what you're trying to do. But what we don't want you to do is jump yourself up into a different tax bracket and pay more in taxes now, just to later down the road not have to pay.
And we don't have the crystal ball. We have no idea where tax rates are going to be in the future, right? So one of the worst things that you can do is, rip the Band-Aid off and just convert everything into a Roth today. Because what if right now you're going to pay more taxes than you will during your retirement years? What if those rates end up going down? I don't think anybody here thinks that that's what's going to happen, but you got to look at it that way because it's a numbers game and you just want to maximize as much as you can.
Right. And do you have the option of filing single versus filing jointly? And if you did that, would you be able to save money or maybe put more into your Roth if you file single?
So there's a whole lot there. And I think what's really important to point out is you got to assess your situation, right?
Yeah.
There's not too many people are doing married filing single, but just depending on the dynamic. I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into that.
Gotcha. I know that was a loaded question for you.
It was a loaded question.
That was my question.
I almost answer with it depends.
That was my question. Next up is Jordan from Chesterfield says, can I donate to charity and reduce my taxes at the same time?
As long as it's qualified charity, you could be able to reduce your amount that you're paying in taxes because it reduces that down. But you have to make sure it's qualified. You got to make sure that it is a true nonprofit in order to do that.
Yeah, and we see this quite a bit too as people with RMDs. We're beating up on required minimum distributions a lot. But hey, if we know we have to pull money out, maybe we can take some of that, do life insurance, and maybe potentially pass that to a qualified charity, what's called a QCD, right? So you've got the ability to do that. What it does is it saves you on taxes right now. But remember that the concept behind it is now you're giving your money away to a charity. You're not paying taxes on that money.
But
Right.
what if you need it later down the road? You don't have access to that money anymore. So
Oh,
you got to be aware of that
boy.
fact too.
Right, lots of stuff to think about there. Vicky from Henrico says, what are some smart tax moves I can make now to help me later in retirement?
Well, I think, having a balance between pre-tax and Roth or non-qualified. You don't stick everything in one spot, right?
Right.
We have, in an ideal scenario, you've got multiple buckets, 3, 4, 5, 6 buckets, doing a little bit of different things between the investment vehicles themselves, tax situations, liquidity. There's a lot that comes into a retirement plan. So yeah, let's look at a balance. A lot of people aren't aware right now that their employer plan, you could potentially put Roth funds in there now. Good thing about that, there's no income limits, and you have the ability to put in a lot more inside of that 401k in Roth than you are on a standalone, Roth IRA.
Yeah, and some employers match too, right? Which is helpful.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Robert from Goochland says, are annuities a good option for reducing taxes, or do they have hidden costs?
Well, I think there are costs associated with anything, right? But we're not worried about the costs right now at this minute. We're talking about the taxes. An annuity, if you put money into an annuity and it's after-tax money, that is about almost the only vehicle that you can use that will tax defer, right? So outside of an employer plan, that could be a benefit, because there's a lot of people now that, hey, I want to use a CD or a money market account. Well, if it's after-tax money, we're going to have to pay taxes on those gains every year, whereas we can use an annuity and tax defer the taxes.
Okay. All right, last question. Carlos from Rockville says, how does tax loss harvesting work, and should I use it? I know we touched on this a little bit.
Yeah, I think for most people, just understand that if you have gains that you want to make sure that you get them because you have to sell it, make sure you offset it with any type of tax loss.
Yeah, and it's important to point out that you can only do but so much in a year, right? Now you can still forward projection some of that, but yeah, you got to make sure once again that you understand the rules and the guidelines.
So many rules and guidelines. All right, believe it or not, we have reached the end of the show. So one last time, that special offer for us.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. So the first 10 callers from today's program, if you save $250,000 or more for retirement, pick up the phone, give us a call, 833-897-4845. If you're interested in building your very own retirement roadmap, tax strategies, things we talked about on today's show, give us a call. We'd love to sit down with you and build that for you.
Yeah, great idea. And guys, don't wait. Seriously, the first 10 callers will receive a complimentary, no obligation retirement review to help ensure that you're on the right track. So if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement, call right now. Again, that number is 833-897-4845 to claim your spot, or simply scan that QR code on the bottom of your screen. On behalf of all of us at Aspire to Retire, I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson. Have a great day.